Good afternoon, everybody. We want to welcome everyone to the pregame cheat sheet with Steve Walls and Darren Smith. I am Steve Walls, host of the W Show on 100.1 FM. My guy to the whichever way you're looking at it is to the right of the screen. If you're looking at it, watching us on Facebook Live, that is Darren Smith, host of the Ship on 810 WHB Sports Radio. Darren, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's a perfectly good day out here in Las Vegas, outside of Allegiant Stadium, where Kansas City has taken over Las Vegas this weekend.
Man, so you made the trip to Vegas. Just talk about the vibe since you've been there since, I think, Thursday, right?
Yeah, I've been there since Thursday. I'm staying at the Venetian Hotel. Kansas City fans came with me. They were loaded up on Southwest Airlines coming out here Thursday, and they've been out here all weekend. I mean, look, I would be surprised to say if a lot of people got a lot of sleep thus far. Obviously, with us being 2 hours behind Kansas City, you can't tell what time is night, what time is day out here. But literally, late into the midnight hours, the last 2 nights, people from Kansas City been all over the streets of Las Vegas, up and down the casinos, at the Caesars, Bellagio. I mean, just they're everywhere. I mean, they were out here earlier today, like for a big group shot that they did around, I'd say about 1 o'clock. I think I may have just missed them because I came out here early because of the time zone is messing me up. I thought we was going to be doing the show 2 hours ago instead of what we're doing it now. So look, it's gotten even the best of me so far.
So walk me through, or walk the myself and also our viewers through what the actual stadium looks like from the outside, because you're just feet from looks like the front of the stadium.
Well, literally, I mean, it's black on black. I mean, it's let me see if you would grant me, let me see if I can switch the camera around, because what I want to do is I want to give people an idea of what the stadium looks like. And if you, well, hold on. Well, that's live radio for you. So when you look at it, you see this is the stadium right here. Now there's parts around the stadium that you see it. You have fans that are out here taking pictures, things of that nature. So I mean, it's huge. It actually does look like a space star, like the Death Star that you would see on Star Wars. But it's a beautiful stadium from a distance and even up close.
Now it looks like it's warm weather. Of course, it won't be the game today won't be affected by the weather. But what's the weather like out there in Las Vegas?
It is a perfect, and I mean a perfect, 70 degrees out here. You don't need a jacket. You don't need. I mean, it's perfect. Perfect weather. 70 degrees, 72 degrees. Nice amount of wind blowing, but it's great. It's perfect.
Now let's dive into the reason that Chiefs fans are there. You're there out in Las Vegas. The Chiefs head out there to take on the Las Vegas Raiders for their second matchup of the season. Now, when we look at this team, of course they lost the first game. Derek Carr went off, which is unlike Derek Carr against the Chiefs for the past couple of years. The Raiders defeated the Chiefs at home 40-32. Like I said, Carr went 347 yards and 3 touchdowns, led by rookie wide receiver Henry Ruggs, who had 118 receiving yards. So, Dan, when you look at Derek Carr today, what are you expecting to see from him?
If I'm Derek Carr, what I expect to do is just the same thing that you did in Kansas City. Really, outside of, I would say, the quarterback play, when the Raiders look in the mirror, they see Kansas City's offense in their backfield. You have and Josh Jacobs, you have a bell cow running back. Again, as you mentioned before, Henry Ruggs, he's a speedster, runs as fast, if not faster than Tyreek Hill. You have a solid tight end who's kind of up and coming in Darren Waller, and then of course you have a steady a second receiver in Nelson Aguilar. So if you're Derek Carr, behind that big offensive line, what you want to do, you really just want to continue to do what you did in the first game against Kansas City. Win the line of scrimmage with your offensive line, and if they can push Kansas City defense backwards, look for a big game from Josh Jacobs. And the other thing is, if you're Derek Carr, as long as you don't, if you're not hearing Frank Clark or Chris Jones's name being called over the overhead, that means that you're not hitting the ground as much. So that's what I expect from Derek Carr.
The news this week out of Kansas City was that after the Raiders won, there's the Raiders, but after the Raiders won in Week 5 against the Chiefs at home, the Raiders took a little victory lap around Arrowhead Stadium. Now we have audio from Andy Reid, and let's hear what Andy Reid had to say.
I haven't. I think they have, or they wouldn't have driven the bus around the stadium. So, but that we don't. We just try to get ourselves ready for that team. It doesn't matter if you play them once, twice. We just get ready to play them the best we possibly can.
Now, Darren, of course, Andy is going to try to downplay, this type of game because every media outlet, sports media outlet, and everyone is thinking that this is a revenge sort of game. Do you believe that?
It is. I mean, they're not going to just outright say it, but hold on, I'm getting a little feedback in my ear. No, it is. I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan or if you're a Kansas City Chiefs, you should take personal offense to it. And here's the thing. I guess the biggest thing for me is that if that's what it takes for you to feel like this is a quote unquote rivalry, because the Chiefs have defeated them, I think, 9 of the last 10 times since they had last played them. So, okay, Raiders got to win. Whoopee. But the fact that you had to drive around Arrowhead Stadium and try to prove a point of victory lap or something to that effect, I don't think I do not believe that it's going to be that much of an issue for Kansas City, but it's going to be in the back of their minds. Andy Reid's not going to make it like a pregame brouhaha, like, hey, let's go do this to them so we can take a victory lap. I would. I'm petty enough that I take a victory lap around their stadium, but Andy's not like me.
Now, since we're talking about Andy Reid, he's almost perfect coming off of a bye week, right? I mean, he's 3-0 against the Raiders coming off of a bye since Andy's been in Kansas City. So what are your thoughts about Andy coming off of this bye? Because I know my thoughts are that he spent last week tinkering with different formations. And of course, we talk a lot of times earlier in the season about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. However, they have Le'Veon Bell now, and we haven't mentioned Le'Veon these past couple of weeks. And so I think Andy's going to try to get a huge dose of Le'Veon.
Yeah, I expect that. Look, Andy's 18-3. Hopefully he becomes 19-3. I'm hoping they can hit their 7-point margin, their point spread. I kind of need them to because I got some money on tonight's game. So I'm just putting that out there. Andy, if you're watching, Frank, anybody watching, I need you to win by at least 7 points tonight. But that being the case, look, Andy, you give him time for preparation.
Mm-hmm.
He can put a hell of a game plan together. Now we haven't heard, now I don't know. I know we talked to Le'Veon on Friday, I believe, but I'm not sure how much he's actually going to play. Obviously, Clyde is the starter, so it just depends on whether or not we're going to see him in there together or how many reps Carlos is going to get, and then compared to not Carlos, but Clyde is going to get compared to Le'Veon. Now, if Le'Veon plays, I think this would be a good game for him to show his stuff. And I can see a scenario, especially since Sammy Watkins isn't playing tonight, where you line Le'Veon up outside as a wide receiver with Clyde in the backfield.
Now, looking at that first the first matchup between these two, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he had a Patrick Mahomes type day. He was 22 of 43, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did have an interception. Travis Kelce had a monster day with 12 targets, 8 receptions, 408 yards. Tyreek Hill had 78 yards, but he didn't score. So Sammy Watkins is out again today. What do you expect to see from this Chiefs offense?
Well, I know we were talking before we came on the air. I know you said Tyreek says he's back. Now, the fact that they're going to be on a track field, so to speak, with this turf, I do believe that Tyreek will have a big game. The thing is, if I know you talked about Patrick Mahomes having a Patrick Mahomes day, but the Kansas City Chiefs had a 2008 Kansas City Chiefs game against the Las Vegas Raiders when they gave up 40 points. I expect, in all honesty, I expect the offense to continue to do what they were doing. To me, the question is going to be, what is Steve Spagnuolo and that defense going to do this time around to keep to keep the Raiders from putting out 40 points or from Tyron and others getting beat deep like they did in the first game by Henry Ruggs.
And we talked to Steve Spagnuolo earlier this week, and he just said that the Raiders, the first matchup, they were one up on the Chiefs. I mean, they were always a step ahead, and so they didn't have a lot of push up front. And I think in this matchup, you're going to see a lot of different blitz packages coming from Steve Spagnuolo, so that they're able to make Derek Carr move outside of the pocket, because Derek he was too comfortable. And listening to what Derek Carr had to say earlier this week was that if he needs to get into a shootout with Patrick Mahomes, he's comfortable with doing that. And you don't always hear that from a quarterback, because me and you have both said that these quarterbacks, a lot of the young guys at least, have they want to live up to the reputation of Patrick Mahomes. They feel like they want to get into a shootout with this guy, and it never works.
Yeah. No. Like, I'm laughing because that's so true. Because we talk about it often, how and it doesn't have to be the young quarterback. It could be a Phillip Rivers, as we saw in Mexico last year as well. When you're playing against Patrick, because of the hype that he has winning the MVP a couple years ago, and then obviously winning the Super Bowl last year, you want to show that if you're a player that's, I guess, in his age group right now, that you're just as good, if not quote unquote better than him. And if you're an old guard like Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady next week and Aaron Rodgers, that you still got it, and that you can compete with with the young Lions. So I expect Derek Carr to say that, but I also expect, like I did in the first game, for Derek Carr to try to do too much and make a mistake, which he did with the interception in the first game. However, the Chiefs end up doing what they did later on in that game and end up losing the game. But I expect Derek Carr, like Phillip Rivers, to do what Derek Carr normally does against Kansas City, and that's to make a big play, but also make a big mistake as well.
Now that's where Frank Clark and Chris Jones come into play, because if you let Derek Carr, if he's comfortable, right? If he's comfortable sitting in that pocket. And he's able to let those speedy receivers and also tight end. You got Henry Ruggs out there. You talked about Darren Waller. If you let those guys just run around and get out in space, they can beat you that way, which is what we've seen in the first game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the biggest thing. Look, if I'm Derek Carr, I have that confidence because, if nothing else, you have an offensive line that can help you back it up. The question is going to be is whether or not he holds on to the ball too long, and just how long that offensive line can protect him. Now maybe again this game, with the blitz package that you say that Steve Spagnuolo might have in mind, you got to remember they have a speedy outside receiver. So I mean, if you're going to blitz, that means you're going to leave him one-on-one. Are you sure that your defensive backs, that your corners can stay with them, the entire time? That's a chance that you have to take and that you have to look at taking. I don't know if you really do that, or if you're Steve, do you disguise it enough to where he doesn't know where it's coming from, and then, let the chips fall where they may.
And speaking of the defensive backs, we talked with Chief Safety Tyrann Mathieu after the first matchup, and he told us that he was pissed off after the game, that he hadn't, and he hadn't he hadn't felt this motivated in a long time. And he also said that the Raiders and Derek Carr did a good job of catching him off guard, catching him off balance, and that's what he did. And we had a chance to talk to him again earlier this week, and he talked about this upcoming game. Let's hear what he had to say.
Like I mentioned earlier, I mean, obviously a few weeks ago about the Raiders, we hadn't lost a game in a while. I think defensively, we hadn't really played that bad in a while. So for us, it was a gut check. It was a reality check for us. And, like I said after that game, I thought we needed it. Obviously we coming up the Super Bowl victory and starting the season the way we started it, you can kind of get complacent. You can kind of think that things are always going to go your way. So I was glad that we kind of, had that moment. Because we've really been getting better, in my mind, since that day.
Now, he talked about one of the big things that we had talked about earlier this season, and that was complacency. And, of course, they're human. It's natural that you played your heart out in last season and then also won the Super Bowl. Now you come into this season as a big dog on campus, so to speak. the top dog in the NFL. And of course, you have a target on your back, but you can kind of get complacent. It's like, hey, I won my ring, I've got my money. Now, I'm gonna chill and I'm gonna coast until it's time to turn it up, which is the second half of the season.
I'll be honest, when I hear that, I think back to the fact that nobody wants to talk about it, but I think that they had ambitions of going 19-0. Now you're not going to obviously come out publicly and say that, but because they had won 9 straight, and then leading up to the Raiders game, they had won 13 straight games. They may have felt like that whatever they put out there on the field, that if at the end of the day, if they got into trouble, Patrick could come out and rescue them. It got to the point where that once that game happened, and they and look, here's the thing. They got caught with 2 penalties on touchdown passes that that they shouldn't have had penalized against them, especially the one for Tyreek Hill's touchdown. So the Chiefs should have probably won that game, minus those penalties that took away those 14 points. If you look at that, then of course they probably come into this game undefeated. So if you're Kansas City, you're thinking that, damn, even on our worst game or our worst day, we still scored 32 points. Now we gave up 40, but that's to them. To Tyron and others, that's just an anomaly because they haven't given up that many points. Granted, they gave up 31 against Carolina a couple of weeks ago, but that was a game that they kind of had under control as well towards the very end. So if I'm Tyron, I understand about the complacency, but he's been pissed off a lot lately. But I will tell you that kind of like the last game, if you're not hearing Tyron's name being called a lot in tonight's game, that's a problem because he's not making any big plays.
Do you think that it's Tyron though? I mean, because here's the thing about that.
No.
If, if,
I'm not saying it's Tyron, but he is the rent collector. So and he's the captain. He's the leader of that defense. So he gets everybody in. He gets everybody in their place. But again. Tyron is like Steve Spagnuolo out there on the field where he knows where everything is supposed to be. If he's getting beat, if he's not doing what he's supposed to do, or if he has a lapse, then the Chiefs can get beat like they did against the Raiders last time, and they can have points scored on them. So obviously, he's putting pressure on himself to make sure that he performs well to live up to expectations. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But to me, that's what I'm taking from his comments.
And even if you don't hear Tyron's name called, if Frank Clark and Chris Jones and you have Mike Pennell, all those guys up front, right? If they're doing their job and they're flushing the quarterback out of the pocket, he's not able to get the ball down the field. So of course you wouldn't hear Tyrann Mathieu's name, and that's what I'm saying. It starts up front with those guys. They have to get after.
No doubt.
They have to get after the quarterback, and if they're able to do that, then you possibly won't hear Tyrann's name.
No. Well, I agree with that, but of course Tyrann plays all over the field. So sometimes he comes to blitz, sometimes he's on the line and he rushes and makes the tackle in the backfield. So I'm saying Tyrann is someone that in his position with his skill play, he's all over the field. So you expect him to be involved in big plays somehow, some way. Now, maybe it's just a tip pass. Maybe it's the rush that he gives that the quarterback is not aware of, that he throws the ball and, it gets intercepted on the other side by Travarius Ward or someone because of the rush and the pressure that Tyrann is saying. So, I'm not saying that if his name isn't called, period, that's a problem. But again, with him being the rent collector, you expect him to be involved somehow, some way in the big plays that need to be made.
Now, we talked about the big guys up front, Frank Clark, Chris Jones, those guys. However, Josh Jacobs had a huge day in the first matchup between these two teams. He had 23 attempts, 77 yards, touchdowns, and Devontae Booker also had he's had an okay day with 7 attempts for 62 yards. What do you think? What do you think these guys are going to do in this matchup?
Oh hell! If I'm the Raiders, I'm running the ball all day long. I'm keeping Patrick on the sideline as much as possible. It almost worked when the Chiefs last hit the field because they were playing the Carolina, but I gotta say, just editorial, just the Chiefs with this offense with Patrick Mahomes is going to be something special because they only had the ball, I think, 20 minutes, maybe 21 minutes against the Carolina Panthers, and they still won the game with 33 points.
24 minutes, 42 seconds.
Yeah, and so they don't. I mean, it goes so they don't have to have the ball as long as their opponents, and they can still get points. And look, I remember watching that game because one, I was pissed because they didn't cover the points or they didn't cover the spread, and I'm sitting thinking like, man, they're gonna mess around and lose. But then again, but the Chiefs came back from behind. It's like, man, hold on. And then we look at the stats post game. We're like, wait a second. They only had the ball for how long? And they scored 33 points. And like Carolina, they were doing everything they could. They were running the ball effective. They were passing the ball effective. They were doing everything that needed to be done, but they still couldn't beat Kansas City. The Raiders, though, again, as I mentioned before, when we first started, came on the air, is that they have an offense that is somewhat similar and mirrors Kansas City's offense. Now, their quarterback is not as good, nor is he as strong, has as strong of his arm as Patrick Mahomes. But remember, Derek Carr in 2016 was the MVP candidate before his foot injury, and so he can play the game. And now John Gruden has built this team through the draft to compete against Kansas City with his draft picks that he got from Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. So he's got the pieces in place to compete. And again, they have literally what I would say the best offensive line in all of football. So if Derek Carr just doesn't make any mistakes, they can beat Kansas City. I don't think it's going to happen. But because they did it before, they shown that they can do it at Arrowhead. You can't take what they do for granted. So they can just come out and play their regular game, sprinkle in a few new plays or whatever, and still beat Kansas City.
Now, what would a series sweep do for these Raiders' confidence? I mean, they're at home. Of course, they beat the Chiefs at home already. But just looking at the AFC West, the Chiefs have been, the king of the hill, so to speak, in the AFC West for the past few years, as long as I can remember. And so what would that do for the Raiders' confidence if they were able to win this game?
Well, I mean, it would give them a leg up and would probably bump them up in the AFC playoffs, but they would still be, I believe, a game or two behind Kansas City. So, in the long run of the picture, I don't think it would do much of anything because you could win the AFC West and still, you can win all the games in the AFC West and still lose the division. So the Chiefs will still be in the forefront. I mean, for the Raiders, it would just show that, okay, we've arrived and now we actually do have a rivalry with Kansas City. And the other thing is that if they somehow face Kansas City in the playoffs, well, almost cuss. Well, they can beat Kansas City at home or away. So for the Raiders, it builds more confidence in them going into the playoffs if they have to face Kansas City, that they know they can come to Arrowhead and beat Kansas City, or somehow, some way, Kansas City lost the division and had to come here. They know that they could beat them here.
And here's the thing: the Raiders came out crazy aggressive in that first meeting. Right. I mean, they did some uncharacteristic things. I mean, we all thought that the Chiefs were going to come into that game. I mean, the Raiders were going to come into that game running the ball. Like we said today, we thought they were going to come in running the ball, but they didn't do that, so to speak. I mean, they had more of a well-rounded type game. They were able to stretch the field with Henry Ruggs and Darren Waller. They were able to do that. And when it kind of got the Chiefs on their heels, and once the Chiefs were on their heels, they hit them with the running game.
Well, again, in that last game, you got to remember, because of the penalties that Kansas City had that cost them touchdown, it got Kansas City. Actually, and it wasn't really anything that the Raiders did, but Kansas City got themselves out of a rhythm and got themselves out of their own game plan. Because again, they felt like they should have been up. They would have scored the first score of the game with that Tyreek Hill touchdown to get called back. And now, if you're up 7 versus being down, your whole game plan, you're calling it much differently because you're in the lead versus trailing. And so that when that happened, that of course got them out of the thing where they couldn't really establish a run, where they had to go to the air, because now you're playing catch up the entire game. So the Chiefs got pulled out of their game plan more so than the Raiders. So again, if I'm Las Vegas, if I'm John Gruden, I don't know, at the coin toss, do you elect to defer? Do you pull an Andy Reid and take the ball at the end of the second and put Andy Reid's offense out there first, or do you come out and do you take the kickoff and establish your dominance early in the ball game.
If I'm John Gruden and I get the opportunity to take the ball first, I'm going to take the ball first. And the reason why is you don't want the Chiefs to come in and build up momentum, right? If they come in and the Chiefs get if you're John Gruden and you elect to defer, which means you get the ball back in the second half and the Chiefs get the ball first, the Chiefs could possibly go up 7 points on you, and then you're fighting from the behind at that point. And let's just say you don't get your offense isn't rolling like you're expecting, and the Chiefs go up 14-0, and now you're in a position where you can't run the ball like you want to. Now you're in a position where you have to stretch the field and try to make Derek Carr do some things that he's not capable of doing. And so I would just take the ball first, and that way we can see where we're at offensively.
Yeah, but here's the flip side, Steve. What if you give the Chiefs the ball first and they go 3 and out?
Correct. I agree.
So I got to sneeze.
I agree. I agree.
So if you're Gruden and you decide to elect to defer and your defense holds on the first drive, I mean that's a chance worth taking.
But just thinking, you have to think about. Bless you. You have to think about it like this.
Thank you.
You have to think about it like this. If look at what the Chiefs have done so far this season. They've come out on, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but if they've come out on a lot of these first drives and have scored, and so you don't want them with this being a revenge type game. They're going to come out red hot. I mean, Tyreek Hill posted earlier today. It's like, hey, I'm back. I don't know what that means. But to me, it seems like
I didn't know he had left. But
to me, it seems like he's going to stretch the field and they're going to air it out today. I mean, they're inside of a dome. There's no weather factors or anything like that. I feel like it's going to be a track meet.
Yeah, but Steve, the only flip side is that you got defensive players that now have a Tyreek Hill on their own team, so they go up against that speed every day. So Tyreek can't really surprise them with anything that they don't already, that they haven't already seen. And the defense is just not gonna let you run past them. I mean, look, as much as he said he's back, I didn't know he had left. I never knew he left. I mean, he was playing a couple weeks ago, and he made the trip, so I didn't know where he went because I didn't see him at the hotel last night. I mean, that's cool. I guess if you're Tyreek to say that to get everybody excited and hopes up or whatever that you're gonna have a big game, but at the end of the day, I just think it's just something to get itself and Chiefs fans excited about tonight's game. But I don't really think it's gonna matter. I mean, they're gonna do what they're gonna do because of the offense that's called and what Patrick does in the ball game to get on the ball. I don't think he's gonna do anything special, that we should be really amazed at, so to speak. So I think it's just all hype, taking nothing away from what he says, but
But here's the thing too, Darren. You mentioned them going up against, Darren Waller and Henry Ruggs in practice. They're not facing. Yeah. They're not facing other. I mean, when you look at the Chiefs, they have a lot of different options. They're not facing guys like Travis Kelce. They're not facing a Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is a much better skilled receiver than Henry Ruggs. And you also got to remember DeMarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman, who was placed on the COVID list for the past 10 days. He's going to be playing again. There's no Sammy Watkins today, but you have all those skilled position receivers, DeMarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, those guys. Patrick loves to spread the wealth. We've seen that. And so they don't go up against that type of play extension from Patrick Mahomes where he scrambles around the pocket, outside of the pocket, and is able to fling the ball back across his body and find a wide open guy. They don't go up against that in practice.
No. I don't disagree with you at all on that. I'm just saying as it relates to Tyreek Hill's comments, I just, I'm not going to read more into it than what he said. Now, to me, to be honest, again, I think that this game being on the national stage, and we hadn't talked about it, I don't know if we were or not, but, this game, of course, is good for Patrick Mahomes. Of course, we saw what Russell did Thursday night. People are trying to kind of thrust him back into that MVP conversation about Patrick. I think having the national primetime stage will allow everybody, of course, every Patrick's going to be on the microscope anyway, no matter how the game goes tonight. But I think, to your point, Patrick being able to spread the ball around means that you can't key in on just one person. You can't key in on just Travis, or you just can't key in on Tyreek, because he can beat you with the plethora of weapons by passing, by spreading the ball around. I think that's what he does tonight. I think that's what Kansas City would do, and that's what they've always done. It hasn't been where they focus on one particular player in a ball game. Obviously, if Travis Kelce or Tyreek with more catches, I think that's just the way that the play of the game goes. But no, I think tonight's going to be more so about Patrick Mahomes, because when you're on the national stage, Al Michaels and Chris Collins, they're going to be talking about Patrick all throughout the night. So whatever he does, no matter what Tyreek Hill does, if he outruns everybody, the thing is going to be, the throw that Patrick Mahomes made to Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek just happened to just catch it and run past everybody. So I think the storyline is always going to be Patrick in tonight's game, and that's what's going to be most key. The fact that Patrick can spread the ball around, spread the wealth around, and the Chiefs have a many plethora of ways of beating you that maybe the Las Vegas Raiders don't.
And we got about 30 minutes left in this show, and what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. Coming up when we come back, we're going to talk about the MVP race between Patrick Mahomes. Is he at the top of the MVP list? We'll find out when we come back. This is Steve Walls here with Darren Smith, the pregame cheat sheet. The Chiefs are taking on the I almost did what you said. The Las Vegas Raiders out in Vegas right now. Darren is right outside of the Death Star, the Allegiant Stadium, where the Las Vegas Raiders are set to take on the Chiefs today. Darren, are there a lot of fans walking around right now?
Yeah, there's actually more Raiders fans. I think they're all on this side when I look at it behind the actual Allegiant Stadium light or whatever. They got a thing where take a player selfie or whatever around it. But no, it's a lot of Raiders fans on the other side right here of where we're broadcasting from.
Now, before we went to break, we talked a little bit about Patrick Mahomes. I want to dive into this MVP race because the scenario earlier this year was that Russell Wilson would possibly win the MVP. He hadn't had an MVP vote since he's been in the NFL, and now he's getting all these accolades of, okay, well, Russell Wilson's doing this, he's doing that. His team is playing phenomenal. However, these past couple weeks, they haven't been. And so Patrick Mahomes, he wasn't in the race earlier on in the season. Now he's kind of been playing well, and they haven't gone to the run game as much, and they let Patrick be Patrick. Now, your thoughts on Patrick being in this MVP race?
Well, I think Patrick has always been in the conversation since the first game. I think when the season started, they were trying to, pretty much see it to where Lamar, could he repeat or whatever. And then, of course, Russell Wilson being in that conversation. But Patrick had always been there. I do believe that, there were a couple of games where you kind of question, like, why is he still in the conversation when he only had 2 touchdowns? And then, but then he'd have a game against like Buffalo. He passed for 3 touchdowns, but he only threw for 200 plus yards. So it was like, okay, is that really MVP type stuff? The last few weeks, yes, I think he's had 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And so, and of course, Russell Wilson before Thursday night had lost 3 games in a row. So that kind of brought him back down and moved Patrick up. I think Tom Brady at one time may have jumped into the forefront. I think after knocking off the Green Bay Packers, but then when they faced the New Orleans Saints, it kind of brought him back down to earth. And then of course Aaron Rodgers was having a good season as well, where he was 24-2, so he was right behind Patrick stat wise. But then I think the game against Jacksonville. Well, you're trying to be an MVP runner, but you're having problems against Jacksonville, and you only won by 4. Plus, you had a couple of interceptions in that game. So, all in all, I think Patrick, as long as Patrick, just stays above water, he's 25 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think stat-wise, he's good to go. As long as the Chiefs are winning, I think I believe that will keep him up above everyone. The sleeper, I would say, would be Ben Roethlisberger, depending on how the Steelers play throughout the rest of the season. If they can somehow run the table and go 16-0, and he is the catalyst. If I know there's been some games where statistically he's had like 2 or 3 interceptions, so that could hurt him. But again, winning, at the end of the day, it's about winning. So I don't know if 16-0 would help him, but but right now I see Patrick in the forefront as the leader, with everybody else coming up behind him in the rearview mirror.
Now, I just want to remind folks, this is the Chiefs pregame cheat sheet with Steve Walls and Darren Smith. Darren, if it ended today, well, let me put it this way: Patrick Mahomes, he's on pace for 4,777 yards and 44 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions. But if it ended today, out of Patrick Mahomes, and I pose this question to everyone listening and watching this on Facebook Live right now, out of Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson, and we can even throw Big Ben Roethlisberger, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, in that mix. If it ended today, who would you select as the MVP?
Well, not that I'm biased, but I would select Patrick based off of his stats and based off his play. Again, I know Pittsburgh is 9-0, but Ben is not the catalyst of all those victories. That they've is the reason why they're undefeated. Again, he's had games like the Tennessee Titans. I think he had 3 interceptions in that ball game. I can't in good conscience, grant you that. Tom Brady, they're 6-3. He's lost twice to the New Orleans Saints, and they're second in the division, so I can't give it to him. Aaron Rodgers would have an argument. They are the number 1 team in the division, but he's had some off games as well. And I believe they're winning right now against the Colts. So, now this is a big game for him. So if he plays well, that kind of keeps him back in there running. And Russell Wilson, again, he had that 3-game stretch where he had, I think, 10 turnovers. So I can't overlook that as well. So, again, turnovers matter, putting your team in position. Patrick is, even though that 1 interception hurt him against the Las Vegas Raiders at home, that wasn't the cause for them losing. So, and Patrick, again, in that game, he threw for 370 some odd yards and still passed for 4 touchdowns in that game. So, no, he would be the clear-cut winner in my book.
Now, let's look at the players who are ruled out for today's game. Sammy Watkins has been ruled out. Taco Charlton and Mitchell Schwartz, they've been placed on IR. Alex Okafor, L'Jarius Sneed, they've been activated from IR, and they will play today. Garrett Dieter and Brian Witzman have been activated from the practice squad. A lot of questions had been surrounding Mecole Hardman earlier this week and into last week as well, because he was placed on the COVID-19 list. Mecole is activated, and he will be playing today. Darren, does that switch up anything for you? I know that we thought that since Mecole may be out, they'd be moving Tyreek Hill to the punt return, of course, because that's Mecole's job is doing the punt return. So do you feel like Mecole will be able to play, even though he's been out of work for the past week?
Yeah, and you look, if I'm Dave Tobe, I think he puts it out there that they would probably have Tyreek there to maybe put a little fear into the Raiders. But I really don't think that we would have seen Tyreek out here against the Raiders. One, you just don't want to take a chance of him getting injured. Of course, this is a quote unquote budding rivalry that's starting to come back up. The last thing you want is for someone taking a cheap shot at Tyreek running the ball. Trying to return the ball and try to get a cheap shot on him, whether it's hit him in the knee or something like that, where he's out or whatever. So you don't put him in that predicament. Obviously, look, McCole used to return kicks as well, but we saw what Brian Pringle did against the Denver Broncos. So now we got Brian Pringle back there instead of McCole, splitting duties doing that. So no, I think we'll see McCole in all his glory. Now maybe McCole finally breaks one loose tonight. Because he's got a chance to rest his body for the last 2 weeks. So I'm looking forward to see what he does tonight. I think, and even if he doesn't, as Dave Tope said, that they do have other players, whether it's DeMarcus Robinson or I believe he mentioned a defensive player. I don't know if it was L'Jarius Sneed or someone that he mentioned. Someone else. No, I think it was Rashad Fenton that he mentioned, who could also return kicks as well. So
right.
So they have other options besides Tyreek, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and when you look at this receiving core, I mean, they have so many options. We talked about it earlier in the show. They have so many options to where if one guy is down, it's they always say, and Eric Bieniemy says this every week, it's next man up, and that's what it's been. It's been next man up. I mean,
it goes to backups to be starters.
Exactly, and you may see Garrett Dieter come in and catch a pass, and you're like, what? Where did Garrett Dieter come from? He was on the practice squad just last
exactly.
But, and that's the thing is like, Patrick Mahomes, he works out with all of these guys over the summer, so he builds up that camaraderie with even the practice players.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's why everybody loves Patrick. I mean, again, how can you not love the guy? And when you have a player who is literally the face of the NFL, I really ain't talking about Patrick because it's like we try to find new words to describe Patrick and everything, but Patrick is just that dude, man. I mean, he seriously, and so it's like, I'm not gonna try to come up with a word that tops what somebody else has said just to try to be descriptive, but Patrick, in all honesty, Patrick is just that dude, and because he will go all out for his teammates, the teammates are willing to go all out for him, and so it's hard. It's hard to replicate that. It's hard to duplicate that, and it's hard to for someone to fake it, and because of that's who he is in general. He doesn't have to fake it. I mean, that's just who he is. And so it comes out when he's playing, when he's on the field, when he's practicing. So people pick up on that again. That's why players are willing to come to Kansas City, take less money because they want to try to win a Super Bowl. I mean, and knowing that this guy, one, he's not going to put you in a situation where, you're going to lose a game. He's definitely not going to put you in a situation where you got to worry about a concussion or, going across the middle or something like that. And he's not going to ask any more of you than what he's not willing to do himself.
I definitely agree with that. It is so we talked about it a little bit earlier, but is this rivalry back? I mean, that was the question all this week is, because like we said, Andy Reid's coming off of a bye. He's 3-0 against the Raiders. They've been the big brother to the Raiders these past few years. But is this rivalry back? Because they're coming out there, they're going behind enemy lines. The Raiders, of course, won the first game of the season, and the talk was the victory lap with the buses around the stadium after their win. But is the rivalry back?
Steve, that's a really good question because I while you were trying to describe it, I was really thinking because the way that the Chiefs have been dominant of the last few years, minus the home game, I would have to say we have to do a wait and see to see how tonight's game plays out. If the Raiders were to win tonight's game, then yes, I would say that the rivalry is back because if the Chiefs win, then we could say, we'll just overlook that game and say it was a blip, on the way to possibly repeating in the Super Bowl. So, not that I'm trying to avoid the question because I don't think I am, but I would just say we would need to wait and see how tonight's game plays out to see whether or not the quote unquote rivalry. Because if the Chiefs come in and do what we expect them to do, Andy Reid off of a bye week, and the Chiefs quote unquote revenge, the Chiefs come in and beat them 45-17, and is it really a rivalry? Is it just, or the Chiefs just put little brother back in his place? Right. Or if the Raiders come out and they smash mouth football and they beat the Chiefs again. Well, oh hell! Now we know that the Raiders are for real. Now we got something going on. Now we got to worry about if they meet up in the playoffs, what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. However, you can take that if Chiefs come out and win this game, you can kind of take that game as an outlier, right? That they just caught the Chiefs on a bad day and any given Sunday, right?
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
if they lose, then you can say, okay, now John Gruden has done a phenomenal job building up, trying to mirror with Andy Reid and Brett Veach has done with this team. I mean, when you look at it, they've seen Patrick Mahomes. They know and they understand. Okay, we have Derek Carr. He can do what we need to get by as far as flinging the ball down the field, getting outside of the pocket. He doesn't really extend plays, so to speak, but he can stretch the field for us. Then you look at comparison for Tyreek Hill. They went out and got Henry Ruggs, first round pick, and so then you look at Darren Waller and Travis Kelce. So there's always those matchups, and then the running back. You look at Josh Jacobs, and of course, I'm sure that they looked at Damian Williams compared to last year, and even Kareem Hunt. And so now it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I mean, when you look across the board, they've tried to match up so many of these guys, offensive playmakers that the Chiefs have. Now, the Chiefs' advantage is that they have, and we said it earlier, they have some extra guys as like Demarcus Robinson. They have a Sammy Watkins. There's still some. We've been saying this. Chiefs have so many first round picks on the offensive side of the ball. There's not, and I can't remember if there is another team in the NFL that has that many first round draft picks.
Probably the Raiders, just because of the picks that John Gruden has gotten over the last couple of years. No, I mean, again, it's what I said earlier. When you if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, what John Gruden has done over the last 2 years, especially because you got to remember, I think his first year coaching, coming back coaching, was Patrick's first full year, I believe, in the NFL as a starter. So he saw what the Chiefs offense looked like with Patrick and know that Patrick is going to be in this division for the next 12, 15 years. So
Right.
You have to, as a head coach, you have to draft and you have to plan to beat Kansas City, not the rest of the NFL, but Kansas City, because that's who you're going to have to meet up and try to beat to get the division crown and get home field in the playoffs and stuff. So he was smart enough to know, and Gruden, of course, with his quarterback coach and doing all the stuff that he did with ESPN, he was smart enough to know what he needed to do, draft or what he was looking for, and to his credit, he got Mike Mayock from the NFL Network. So Mayock, being a draft guru, was able to find the right players, and that was something as a GM that he was able to do, scouting and stuff like that. So now you got the right players that can play in your system, and even though they had some lumps over the last 2 years, the thing is though, they got experience. They got experience as rookies and second-year players in John Gruden's system. So now, come year 3, now you see the payoff of the dividends or whatever of your draft picks and what they're doing. And that's just on the off. We ain't talking about the defense side of the ball with Abram, because he was hurt. He was hurt after the first game last year, and
Right.
when he's brought to the team, he's brought that toughness back to the defense of the Raiders. And so, look, offensively, defensively, this is a complete team. And here's the real key, Steve. They don't do what they used to do back in the 80s, 90s, and even they're not making dumb, foolish penalties any longer either. That's the thing that would always kill the Raiders, were penalties. And I believe even the last game against Kansas City, I think the Chiefs may have more penalties than the Raiders did. So that's something that that they've improved on under John Gruden.
Now, if you're Steve Spagnuolo, what are you telling your guys defensively as the game is getting ready to kick off here in about a little over an hour?
Don't get beat deep. I mean, don't get beat deep. Obviously keep your head on the swivel. Just basically do your job. I mean, look, it's up to Steve Spagnuolo. One thing that he didn't do, that he admitted, he didn't make the necessary adjustments that he needed to make, even coming out of the half. So he needs to be able to make adjustments on the fly if the defense that he's calling isn't working or the players aren't where they're supposed to be. Now you should as a coach you hope that sometimes that the players can make the adjustments themselves, and if not, then you need to be one or your staff needs to be smart enough to say, hey, coach, we need to pull this person out, coach them up a little bit before we put them back in there. That's what I mean. Look, it's easier said than done, but that's what I would do if I'm Spags.
Yeah, and Spags, he needs to make sure that guys are on the right assignment. No mental mistakes. Just don't have poor coverage. I mean, because you look back at the first game, he said that he put Travers Ward in some bad spots. He and I don't know if it was Ward or if he was just taking the blame for Ward, because of course Ward came out last week and said we posted to Twitter that he was in a slump, and of course he's without a cast now, and you know I think this secondary for this Chiefs are going to come out and have a field day. I mean, you have L'Jarius Sneed; he's going to be back to play today, and the secondary I think is key. Of course, you have the guys up front. And we said that earlier in the show, is that Frank Clark and Chris Jones, they need to make their money today. Show why you're getting paid the big bucks on this defensive line. Show why your defense should be one of the top defensive units in the league. Because if you remember last year, they started off slow at the beginning of the season, and then after the bye week, that's when they kind of kicked it in gear and turned it on.
Yeah, no, I'm in total agreement with you. I mean, look, at the end of the day, these are the type of games, especially look, it's prime time. The Sunday Night Football is NBC. I mean, the whole country is going to be watching. I mean, this is the time where, you should be living up to your contract. I know a lot of people talk about Frank and his contract status and what he's produced or whatever. If I'm Kansas City, if I'm Chris Jones, if I'm Frank Clark, or Tyrann Mathieu, this is the game that this is why the Chiefs signed you up. I mean, games like this, Raiders come to your home, they beat you, they drive around the stadium to make to show a victory lap or whatever. Now you back in their home stadium. Well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So I mean, there's not that I'm trying to cut a wrestling promo, but this is what we pay you for, man. I mean, show up. I mean, and if you don't show up, and to be honest, and I'm keep it 100. If they don't show up, it's up to us in the media to call them out on it because, hey, we pay you the big bucks. There's no reason why you can't show up to play tonight and to produce.
And real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to my guy Drew Lock, who did get the win today. So I just want to say that. Real quick.
Hell, that just that don't do nothing for me. That just knocks out all my parlays.
Can't count him out, man. But if you're Andy Reid, I want you to be head coach for a second. If you're Andy Reid, you're still without Mitchell Schwartz. How does it play out for the Chiefs offensive line and this Chiefs offensive unit? What are you telling your guys?
Well, I mean, just continue to do your job. I mean, they've been winning without him, so I mean, they've been doing the same with Sammy Watkins. I mean, we thought that, we thought that Sammy Watkins was going to be back this week, and he's not. So I don't expect Andy Reid to tell them anything different than what they've already been doing. Just continue to do your job and try to keep Patrick upright. Don't let him get hit too often.
I think that's easier said than done, though. I mean, you coming into this game all week. You're looking at the Chiefs' the Raiders' defensive line that were placed on COVID. You're like, okay, were they going to play? Do they have anyone have COVID or not? And you remember we talked about Abrams. Abrams, we didn't know if he was going to be able to play, but all the defensive linemen are in. Abrams will be playing. What do you say about that?
I'm sorry. I'm just looking at all my parlay bets. Just going by the wayside, looking at the scores right now. So what were you saying about Abrams? I'm sorry.
No. The defensive line.
Just looking at money to flush down the toilet.
I told you, Denver was the key, man. You got to start listening to me. No, but I'm talking about the defensive line.
Steve, we have most of the same bets. Well, look, the defensive line for the Chiefs or for the Raiders?
For the Raiders, they were.
Oh, well, look, for the Well, look, if I'm to be honest, I think because they were just high contact, they just had to be isolated and test negative. To me, that's kind of like a bye week for them because they didn't really have to do too much practicing. They probably got a chance to rest up a little bit more. All they had to do was just test negative every day. So I think they come into this game fresh, and if anything, it gives them a greater advantage against the Chiefs' offensive line because granted, the only thing that they really have to worry about is, of course, the play calling and stuff like that, and whether or not their endurance is there. But I don't think that's going to be much of a factor. But I really believe that it actually works in the Raiders defensive line side because they didn't have to really do too much this week except for just rest their bodies.
Now, before we give our picks about the Raiders Chiefs game, you want to give your picks for tomorrow. Rams at Bucks. Of course, the Rams go into Tampa Bay at 6-3. The Buccaneers are 7-3. Buccaneers are your favorite to face the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. What say you about the game tomorrow?
Man, I don't even care, dude. I'm still thinking about all this money that's gone down the toilet this weekend with some of these picks, man. I'm still salty about Saturday night, losing that $4,000. Look, yeah, I mean, I want to go with the Bucks on this one,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing that worries me is that the Rams, they can get after Tom Brady with just their front four. And their line has really been having problems protecting Brady when it comes to that pass rush, as we saw twice against the New Orleans Saints and even against the Chicago Bears. Uh, I, I got, I think man, I want to say I picked the Rams actually, but I think I went on ahead and went with Tampa Bay because they're at home. But it would not shock me one bit if they lost this game against the Rams.
Hmm. I'm going with I'm going
So
with
I'm basically holding my nose picking. I'm basically holding my nose picking the Bucks.
I'm going with Tampa Bay tomorrow as well, and that's a game that Chiefs fans should be watching because this Raiders game, and I've been saying this
Yeah.
Raiders game today is one of those that it's stuck between the game last week and the Chiefs going out down into to Florida to face Tampa Bay.
And that's the other thing too. The Tampa needs to win this game because with the Saints winning today, they
Hmm.
gotta try to stay as close to New Orleans as possible. So they can't afford to lose the game against because basically I think seeds 5 and 6 between the Bucks and the Saints. So I'm sorry, no, the Bucks and the Rams. So Tampa needs to win this game, especially with the Chiefs coming into play next Sunday, which of course is going to be the game of the week on CBS in the late afternoon slot. So this is the game that Tampa Bay has to win because if not, then if they lose this game, then you're coming post Thanksgiving and you got the Chiefs, and the Chiefs not coming down to lose. So the Bucks should be going in a whole different direction if they don't right the ship and win tomorrow against the Rams.
Now, the game today, Chiefs versus Las Vegas. Who do you have?
Dude, because of the money, I'm at to lay some money down on the Chiefs tonight and hope they cover the spread. I got the Chiefs winning. I got them winning. Well, they got to win by at least 7. So I got the
Mm.
Chiefs winning 35-21. So
Mm.
that's 14. So yeah, I need the Chiefs to win by 7 tonight because I'm putting some money down on them.
And I believe the over under is 50. So 50, I think it's 50 and a half. So they have to
No, 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 no. No, it's 56. It's 56. It's up there.
56. Okay.
I'm not doing that. I'm just going straight. Yeah, I'm just going straight. I'm not doing straight money. I'm talking about straight spread. I need the Chiefs win by 7 or more.
Yeah, it is 56. All right, now I think my score is going to be 40-17. What do you think about that? Chiefs.
I mean, if my parlays were still in action, yeah, I would agree. I would say yes, that's a perfect. But now I don't care. I just need them to win by 7.
All right. Well, this is the
But if it helps you win your best tonight, Steve, so be it.
all right.
If it helps you win, hey, I'm all for it.
This is the pregame cheat sheet with Steve Walls and Darren Smith. Darren, Let the folks know where they can catch you at later this week.
Well, I'll be back in studio tomorrow. I think you'll be joining me. You can catch me on Darren and Sterling at 3 o'clock Central on ESPN Kansas City. We'll be on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'm off Thursday and Friday on both A10 and ESPN due to the holiday. So we'll just be on 3 days this week. But you can catch us, of course, during the Red Hour tomorrow, recapping tonight's game. And on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Darren Smith, WHP.
All right, for Steve Walls, the W Show, and Darren Smith of the Ship, this has been the pregame cheat sheet. We are out of here. Stay safe. Wear a mask.
Peace.